Hello. So I wanted to start off by saying I thought it was ironic because me and Humza spoke before this, and we both kind of agreed that we hate, like, not hate, but we would never call ourselves a star or a celebrity or anything like that. That's totally not either of our style. But then I get here today, and the board outside is Instagram star, Instagram star. But I will say, I think, and I'm sure you would agree, even a year ago, if anyone had said the kinds of opportunities I've had just in the last year because of Instagram, I would have said, you're crazy, that none of that's going to happen. So, I mean, in a year, in 5 years, maybe social media stars will be the new celebrities. And I think that's kind of what we're here to talk about, is where we see things going and how we got our starts with our accounts. So I'll just tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'll turn it over to Humza. I started on Instagram. My account is just Gillie Houston, just my name. And I started on Instagram pretty much when the app began, and I was just using it casually. It was like grainy photos of my friends, like with really shitty filters on them, like really old school. And then it sort of took a turn for me when I got my first iPhone. And this was a few years ago, and I had like the iPhone 4C. It wasn't even great camera quality, but I was still like, whoa, my mind is blown by how beautiful photos can be just taken on the iPhone. And around that point in time, I'd always loved food, but I never really knew how to cook. I didn't really grow up in a cooking family. So I was teaching myself how to cook, and I was taking photos of everything. And back then, food Instagrams weren't really a thing. So I think timing was on my side, in that people started following me because they were like, damn, this girl posts a lot of really good looking food. And back then there weren't that many accounts doing that. And so then I came back to New York. I went to school here. I started working in food and in journalism. Now I'm an editor at a food magazine, and I write for a lot of food publications. So that's just what I'm around all the time, and it's what I'm obsessed with. So many people would call me a food Instagrammer. I don't know if that's necessarily true because it's just my name, it's not a brand, but it is a way for me to express the thing that I'm most passionate about, and I think Humza is really similar like that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, sorry, I'm kind of like wrapping my head around this. I literally just ran like a bunch of miles. Yeah. Whoa. Okay. Yeah, to kind of also introduce myself similar to Gillie. I started off on social media. My Instagram handle name is Humza Deas, but before that, do not laugh. It used to be Old Coffee. I had no idea what I was doing with social media at that time. I was literally just on it because everyone else was. And then I've been skateboarding for the past 9 years. I'm now 19 years old. And my videographer who filmed me skateboarding would stop and take photos on his iPhone. And I was amazed by the results that I would see later on in a day when he shared it on social media. And I was like, oh, like, no way, like, you got that effect. You know, like, he used apps to enhance his images. And I was like, it didn't look like that in person. So I wanted to create images like that. And me and another friend would go out on days where it was raining or days that you couldn't skateboard. And after that, my friend got annoyed because I always thought he was the better photographer because he had the better mobile device and a better DSLR camera. So I would kind of shadow him. If he pointed his iPhone at something, I would stand right behind him and point my iPhone. You know, sometimes nudge him out of the way, like, oh, like, where he's standing, like, I got to do the same posture, you know, like, and that's going to make my photo, like, just like his. And he got annoyed because of that, and he said, Humza, I don't want to hang out with you anymore. You're kind of copying everything I do. So I was like, oh, like, screw you. Like, I could totally do my own thing. So then the next 2 weeks, I just went out and captured my own content. And right then and there was when kind of like everything started for me. It led me to where I am now, to being on a stage talking to you. I started doing urban exploration photography, where that revolved around risking my life just to go and get a photograph and bring that back and sharing it on social media. And I'm not going to get into detail too much about it. A lot of things happened, such as people placing white flags where they shouldn't have been, me being accused of that, and that kind of like sparked an outrage online. And I received death threats and like people hated me. Like my best friend started to hate me. Like people that I showed photography started to hate me. Like just everything fell down. But at the same time, like my whole world shattered right there. But when it shattered, like something else created, like a whole nother world was building itself out of that, like out of the broken pieces of mine. It was a lot, but yeah, let's. Yeah, I want to talk about. Yeah.
Well, now that we know Humza's world was shattered and built back up,
Yeah.
I just want to talk about your photography a little bit because I think it's just mind-blowingly beautiful. And to me, it's pretty easy to go take a photo of a brunch and make it look good. But some of the things you post are like astonishing. So did you always set out to be a photographer, or did it sort of bloom out of social media? And have you had any sort of formal training, or were you just sort of self-taught in that way?
I was self-taught. I didn't come from a family with a lot of money, so I had like an Android device. It was like a family plan phone, terrible camera on it. So my friend was shooting with an iPhone, so I said, I need an iPhone so I can, copy him. And I didn't have any money to afford a brand new one, so when the iPhone 5 came out, my friend was getting rid of his iPhone 4. It was broken, like the screen was literally halfway off. Only thing that really functioned was the camera and like 2 editing apps. So I said, hey, can I buy that off you? And he gave it to me for $40 when he originally charged me $50. So at this time, I was like shooting with a broken iPhone 4, and it was more of lifestyle content, what I went through about my everyday, from skating from all the way to Queens, all the way down to like South Street Seaport in Manhattan. I documented my everyday, and then I noticed that people started to like that. And at the time, I was following like 200 Instagram accounts, and I was like, well, if I'm gonna do photography, I need to follow more. So I went on my favorite photographers' pages. I went through who they were following, clicked on all the people that they're following, and I was like, okay, this interests me. And then right then and there, I was exposed to all different types of photography, from food photography, lifestyle photography, to urban exploration, to street photography, like all the different mediums of photography I was exposed to, and I was like, wow, this world is bigger than I thought, and this whole social media world is bigger than I thought. And that's when I set out to build an audience so they can see my work and enjoy it as much as I did.
Speaking of building an audience, I know both of us, our main platform that we share on is Instagram, but obviously now there are so many different other apps and tools. What kinds of other ways are you reaching out? What other apps are you using to sort of build a community outside of Instagram, or sort of involve your viewers more in your life? And
Well, I'm sure like most of you, in light of recent events, I use Snapchat. And then, I use Snapchat to kind of document my daily life versus like the things I did before. Like if I posted something on Instagram, it would be from the day before or the week before. So Snapchat was a way that I can show people what I'm currently doing, and they love that, like the kind of like the insight into my life. And they would send me messages and I would reply, and they would be like, oh, like you actually replied. Most people, when they saw my work online, they thought I was like this character, this ghost, or based on my work, they thought I was like some guy in a red leotard swinging his web across New York City to get a photograph. And I was like, no, like I'm just like you, like I'm in high school, I'm out here just like you, just trying to document my everyday.
yeah, I love Snapchat too. I was a pretty early adopter of Snapchat, and what I loved about it was I think Instagram can sort of put this veneer over things and make everything look perfect and filtered, and make your life look so composed. And what I think is great about Snapchat is that I think they actually go perfectly hand in hand, because you get to show people that side of your personality that makes them say, like, this seems like my friend, this seems like a person I could hang out with. I mean, I know that I don't take myself very seriously. Like, I'm a very, I find humor in everything. But if people don't read my captions, or they're just scrolling through, they might not get that about me. And so then you start to build this community of people who you feel like understand you better and feel like they're friends with you and feel like they could go have a meal with you or go, shoot some crazy side of a building, and they want to have that deeper connection. Obviously, this week, the Instagram stories came out. I'm not crazy about them because I kind of like the separation. I like, You like the Instagram stories?
Oh yeah.
Well,
Oh,
the
yeah.
views are pretty nice, but I do almost like a little bit of separation, a little bit of still that alternate reality of Instagram where everything is beautiful and everything's a little untouchable. So how, speaking of kind of developing that personality, how have you differentiated yourself from other accounts and made it stand out versus the next, person shooting buildings and...
Yeah. So to kind of jump back again, when I first started photography, like I idolized like 3 photographers, and when I idolized them, I was like, oh my God, like this guy's a god, like he's a photo god, like, oh my God, did you see that photo? Like you're literally just like losing your mind. And then when you start to develop your craft, you're kind of like, okay, like I was fortunate enough to meet those 3 photographers that I idolized, and when I met them, I was just like, do not blow this, like make them your friend. And when I did that, instead of idolizing them, I began to humanize them, and I was like, oh, like they pee and poop just like you. And you just become like more aware of how social media is guided and like how you can edit yourself online. Like these people, they seem like photo gods online, but in person they're just like you. They have a sense of humor and they're human. But sorry, what did you say?
Just how you sort of differentiate yourself and make yourself stand out from the next person. Not that many people are like scaling the side of like the Empire State Building to
there you go.
crazy
All
shit.
right, I got my train of thought again. Yeah, so like you can kind of like when I to kind of go off what she said, when I hung out with those like popular photographers, and they saw my work, and like I said, they're like, oh, like that's your work. Like I've seen articles about that, or they're like, oh, like they're the established photographer, and they're telling me like there's no way I would do that. And every time I got that response, I was like, that's exactly why I would do it, because even you, the most established photographer, wouldn't go to the lengths that I go to in order to capture this image and bring back and share with the community of social media. And I said, that's my niche. That's how I can be creative and original in this social media world where everything has been done. And that's what I continue to do.
Has there ever been a point in time that you suddenly had like a boom in followers? Because I know my growth has been just pretty much gradual. Occasionally I'll be included on a list of, the top food Instagrammers to follow, and you'll get like a bump of 1,000 followers. But was there ever a time maybe when that whole controversy was happening? I remember when that happened with the white flags on the bridge, and people thought it was terrorists, but then they were like, no, it's just these crazy, street shooters.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I am not aware of that. But was there ever a time when your followers just sort of took off and you sort of had your moment? Because he has 188,000 followers. Like, that doesn't just happen overnight. But
yeah. So at one point, I had 9,000 followers on Instagram, and it was mostly New York people, and they were like, oh, like tagging their other friends, like, look at this photographer, like, shooting from atop the Manhattan Bridge, or, like showing you some crazy perspective that you don't often see of New York. And then out of nowhere, I woke up one morning to 14,000 followers. And I was like, yeah, Instagram is just like flipping out. So I deleted the app, re-downloaded it, and I opened it up again. I was like, okay, this is still at 14K. It's like, what happened? And first thing I do every morning, I look at my Instagram. So I go look at my text messages, and it's like 22 unread texts, like 6 missed calls. And people are just like cursing me out, sending me death threats. And then some of them are like, dude, like my mom saw you on the news. And I'm just like, what's going on? And then that's when I was accused of putting a white flag on top of the Brooklyn Bridge. And people accused me of that because I was that kid in New York City known for climbing up a bridge to take a photograph. And when that happened, a bunch of articles went out. I was on news channels. I was on like NPR. And people were like, oh, Humza, you're getting so much popularity off of this. But all they saw was like my followers going up. And yeah, I saw it too. It was nice. But at the same time, like I was receiving death threats. Like, and then the following week, like every time I went outside and I saw other photographers, like I put my camera away and I like went on like red alert. I was like, okay, if these guys attack me, I'm gonna have to defend myself. So at that time, it was kind of like most people would say like that was my big break. And over the next course of like that week, my following shot up to about 44K because like the whole controversy of the white flag, everyone was pointing a finger at me. Like my following did shoot up, but virtually it shot up, but in reality, I always looked over my shoulder and I was like, I'm shooting photos, like I shouldn't have to look over my shoulder scared to take a photograph. You know, like I don't think it's ever gotten up to that point where somebody had to do that. And that was kind of the big break I had. Do I regret it? No.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, there's pluses and minuses to everything. And I'd say one of the things that probably both of us that's a plus and minus is this new sort of world of monetizing your Instagram and working with brands. Because obviously I think now everyone wants to know how to get to, especially millennials, because they know millennials aren't watching TV commercials anymore and saying, I'm gonna buy that. Or, you know, they're not necessarily being force-fed those products and going out and buying them. So they wanna work with influencers and sort of get the word out about their products, but at the same time you walk that fine line as someone saying, how do I stay authentic to my brand? Because I think there tends to be more of a criticism on influencers when they advertise on their feed, because unlike a celebrity or a brand, when you partner with someone almost feels like their friend is trying to sell them something. Like if your friend came over and said, hey, do you like this watch? Like, isn't this a great watch? Well, they gave me $20 to like try to sell it to you. So how have you sort of been able to work to monetize your account and to make money off of your work, but do it in a really authentic and way that still doesn't piss off your followers?
So like I was kind of known in New York City for taking like pictures of my feet like off the edge of a building or kind of standing off the edge of a building. So a lot of like streetwear brands saw that and they were like, okay, like he's wearing like Nikes, Adidas, you know, like the popular shoe. And they were like, oh, like what if he was wearing our shoe, our sock, our pant? And that's when they started to reach out to me. And that was pretty cool. I had no idea. I was like, okay, like I just want to take photos. Like, why are you like bothering me? And, you know, I had no idea I didn't grow up around money, so I had no idea how to like treat it or ask for it. So they offered me like money, like, okay, like, yeah, we'll give you this for $500. And I'm like, $500? Like, and you want me to take like 20 pictures for you? And I'm just like, yeah. And then, you know, as I grew up and I started to understand how to monetize my Instagram more, I realized that like the things I do, like as a photographer, your work is vital to these brands and your time is worth a lot. So I should be asking for more in return for giving them the things that they get, because my work isn't something, at least I think in my opinion, my work isn't something that you can get from the everyday photographer. So by risking my life for these images to bring back to you and you sell to your consumer, like I should be getting paid a fair amount. So that's when I started cranking my prices up very, very higher. And I began to understand how I can monetize that. And one of the things that I'm really happy that I got to do is, one of my favorite musicians is Kanye West. And one of my first major gigs was partnering with him on Yeezy Season 1. And I was like, I lost, like, I've never been a fanboy, but that was it. That was it. I was like, all right, I'm losing my cool. And there was like certain times during the campaign where they were like, yeah, like, Humza, come in like 3 hours later. And I'm like, sure, I could sleep in. Then when you get in there, they're like, oh yeah, like Kanye was doing this here. And I'm just like, why'd you make me miss that? And they're like, because you can't keep your cool. And I'm just like, whatever. But that was like, that was like one of my first big payouts. And, you know, like I'm showing my mom and she's like, they gave you that much money for shooting photos? And I'm like, I can't believe it either, but yeah, like this is real. And then I held on to that. I didn't grow up around money. Again, I held on to that check for like 6 or 7 months because I didn't have a bank account. I didn't have any of that. So I just had the piece of paper and I'm like, what am I gonna do with this? Can I cash this in? Like, you're gonna give me like all this money? And that was like one of the big like turnarounds for me.
Yeah. Moving forward, how do you aspire to sort of grow beyond the Instagram worlds? You know, do you aspire to have a photography career that's sort of independent from that identity of being an influencer, or do you sort of just understand them to go hand in hand?
Instagram is Instagram itself, just as if MySpace was MySpace. Like, MySpace was MySpace, and then it died out. Everyone's on Facebook, now everyone's on Instagram. Instagram is a platform, and to be honest, one of the only reasons I share my work on Instagram is because it's the #1 platform out there. So me being someone who wants to monetize and show my work on social media, you have to stay updated with these new apps and new trends. So being an Instagrammer is not as great as being called an influencer. An Instagrammer is so like degrading. Being called an influencer is so much more uplifting because that's just showing you like you are inspiring others, you're influencing others. And yeah, and I mean, where was I going with this?
But I understand that too, and it also extends across different platforms, and it's not super limited.
Yeah, Instagram, well, I mean, not to be like the idiot in the room or me in person, but Instagram is eventually going to die out, and focusing all your time on that one app is great because you do like benefit in the long run. But you know, like if you had 0 followers and you wanted to get like 100 followers now, by the time you get like 100,000 followers, everyone's going to be moved on to the next app. So I think it's best for you to like spread your work across all platforms. Like I share my work on Snapchat, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Tumblr, on 500 Pixels, on VSCO. That's all I could think of on the top of my head, but I'm constantly out there sharing my work on all these platforms because I know one day one of these platforms is going to die out, and then I'm going to need to start all over again. So I'm already at a head start.
Yeah. So I think we have to wrap up, but if any of you have any more specific questions for me or Humza, I'm sure like we'd both be happy to answer them. Just slide into the DMs or shoot us an email.
Oh yeah.
My account is Gillie Houston, and yours is?
Mine's is Humza Deas, HUMZADEAS.
And Gillie's GILLIE, Houston, like the city. But thank you guys. And